A main theme of the book of Hebrews is faith. Was the gospel also preached to ancient Israel? What was missing? For we also have had the good news proclaimed to us, just as they did. But the message they heard was of no value to them, because they didn't share the faith of those who obeyed. Is faith one of the basic things we were taught about Christ? We must try to become mature and start thinking about more than just the basic things we were taught about Christ. We shouldn't need to keep talking about why we ought to turn from deeds that bring death and why we ought to have faith in God. Why imitate those who have faith? So that you may not be sluggish, but imitators of those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. Does assurance have anything to do with faith? Let's draw near with a true heart, in full assurance of faith, our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience, and our bodies washed in pure water. Do we live by faith? Now the just shall live by faith. But if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. What is faith? Now faith is the certainty of things hoped for, a proof of things not seen. What were the patriarchs and matriarchs commended for? This faith is what the ancients were commended for. Do we have faith that God created all things? By faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. What was the difference between Abel and Cain's offerings? It was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did. Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man, and God showed his approval of his gifts. Although Abel's long dead, he still speaks to us by his example of faith. Was faith also Enoch's trait? By faith, Enoch was taken away so that he wouldn't see death. And he wasn't found because God translated or changed him. For he has had testimony given to him that before his translation, he'd been well-pleasing to God. Can we please God without faith? It's impossible to please God without faith, because the one who draws near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards people who try to find him. What actions proved Noah's faith? Because Noah had faith. He was warned about something that had not yet happened. He obeyed and built a boat that saved him and his family. In this way, the people of the world were judged, and Noah was given the blessings that come to everyone who pleases God. What actions proved Abraham's faith, and what was he looking forward to? By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. How did God bless Sarah's faith? By faith, even Sarah herself, when she was unable to have children, received power to conceive offspring, even though she was past the age, since she considered that the one who had promised was faithful. Did they receive the promises in this life, or were they pilgrims desiring a better country? These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. And truly, if they'd been mindful of that country from where they came out, they might have had opportunity to have returned. But now they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly. Wherefore God's not ashamed to be called their God, for he's prepared for them a city. How else did Abraham act in faith? By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and the one who had received the promises was offering up his only son. It was he to whom it was said, "Through Isaac your descendants shall be named." He considered that God's able to raise people even from the dead, from which he also received him back as a type. How did Isaac act in faith? By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. How did Jacob act in faith? By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff. How did Joseph act in faith? It was by faith that Joseph, when he was about to die, said confidently that the people of Israel would leave Egypt. He even commanded them to take his bones with them when they left. How did Moses' parents act in faith? By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents, because they saw that he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. How did Moses act in faith? By faith, Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. When he was grown up, he chose to be mistreated with God's people instead of having the temporary pleasures of sin. He thought that the abuses he suffered for Christ were more valuable than the treasures of Egypt. How did Rahab act in faith? Rahab had been a prostitute, but she had faith and welcomed the spies, so she wasn't killed with the people who disobeyed. How did others also act in faith? By faith, the people crossed the Red Sea as on dry land, but the Egyptians, when they attempted to do the same, were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they'd been encircled for 7 days. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets. What do these witnesses teach us? Therefore, since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that's set before us, looking to Jesus. Do we learn from the faith of our spiritual ancestors? Will we too run with endurance in the race that's set before us? You decide.